Good morning, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate you being here. Today, I want to talk about an independent mind and what it takes to kind of keep yourself away from the throng of influencers and persuaders and the propagandizers that really are kind of overwhelming our general society. And it seems that there needs to be a quality, I guess, of invisibility to the independent mind, that you can stay in independence really off to the side. I think it's not unlike the shamans of primitive tribes that live outside the confines of the village. They live away, they live apart. And I think it's in order to be able to maintain a kind of independence, a freedom of connecting with the world outside in a way that's unique to each of us. And that uniqueness of connection needs to be preserved. So I think spending a lot of time, this is going to sound like a heresy to many, studying various philosophers and psychologists and other individuals who tell you how to be or what to think, or, the philosophizing of so many, you end up living in their head. And I don't think that's a healthy thing for someone that wants to, be an independent thinker. You can't really live in their head. I mean, I remember spending many, many hours of my young adulthood, my 20s and 30s, immersed in, Hermann Hesse and, oh my gosh, all this other stuff, and half of it I didn't even understand. And the thing is that I devoted so much time to understanding their minds that I spent very little time understanding mine. And I think that's the purpose of this podcast, this meditation, this reflection, is to begin to encourage others, that be you, to learn your own mind, learn your own heart. And that process occurred to me, happened to me, became me, through the art of meditating on my own experience. And I've spoken to this so many times, but I think its persistence is going to be of great value here. Because our experience is our gateway to the divine. It's our entrance into the divine hierarchy that comes through our own experience and valuing our experience, taking it to heart, as it were, writing it down, sanctifying it, giving our experience a liturgical reality is extremely important. It's what gives sanctity or sacredness to the fact of our being here. And I don't think there's any doubt, in my mind anyway, that my presence on this earth, this planet, is a sacred thing. I view it with great reverence. And I think understanding my experience reverentially is really important. It's super important in understanding wilderness experiences. It's super important in trying to understand beauty and the nature of our calling. What are we called to be? How are we called to be here? So many influences try to corrupt that. They try to give beauty a popularity, a celebrity. They try and give beauty an allure, a sexuality, an eroticism, to entrance us, to capture our imaginations. And really what it is, it's more insidious than imagination. It's capturing our fantasies, which are expressions and extensions of personality. And I can't think of a greater trap to impinge on the independence of our minds, my mind, is to live in fantasy worlds. It completely takes away from our ability to engage directly with our own experience with the world around us. So a great example, and it's very currently sort of in the news, as it were, is the issue of ideologies. And I can't think of a better way to express fantasy thinking as through ideologies. These are concoctions. These are cooked up ways to understand reality through a political lens that has no basis or bearing on whether or not we will be happy and well governed as a people or as a nation. So ideologies try and crash all of the things that make up the imaginal realms that we use to govern ourselves, to understand our own experience. So a good example would be the breakdown of family in Marxism. Marx hated families. Well, why? Because fantasies occupy a place of authority. They occupy a sense of identity that's different from a political or state identity. It's incredible to understand that people will really forsake their family for the sake of a political identity or a state. I mean, it is the imposing of fantasies on our very sensitive personalities. Personalities that should be becoming beings. And I think that's the march of humankind, is to engage ourselves in the process of becoming a being, to be connected with the divine, to be part of the divine hierarchy, to find our calling. And the descent into personality and the indulgence of personality leads us back into becoming creatures. And that creaturehood is essentially a return to bestiality. And we can see it continuously in the world around us as our streets have become hunting grounds for beasts. I mean, it's a terrible thing to see. It is just tragic. And the way around that is to recapture the independence of our own imaginal realms, the independence of our connection to the divine, and that our understanding of our own experience is the key and the gateway to that. Indulging in our own experience as a meditation is the way to go. Meditating on my experience has been a path of bringing me a great sense of place and pride and of comfort, at the cost of being somewhat invisible. I don't participate in much because I really like the idea of my own independence. It's a place to reside. And it's very much like honesty. And one of the things I'd like to share with you today is the fact of how honesty is, in fact, a place. So I was with a friend quite a few years ago now, and I was having a discussion about family stuff. She was struggling with some of her family issues and the relationship with her mom. And it was real stuff. I mean, you know. And I started to share about my stuff, and all of a sudden I had a incredible revelation about the relationship I had with my mom. And I sort of blurted out the conclusion. And it was startling to me because I, had never expressed my relationship with my mother in those terms. And for now, I'll keep that private. But it was a startling revelation that my relationship with my mother was one that was extremely deleterious. And I blurted that out in a moment of sort of, I don't know how to call it, a revelatory honesty that just burst out. And I just exclaimed it. I was like, that's what it was like. And from that moment on, I had an incredible experience that honesty was a place where I could reside. I could stay there. I could be in that place of honesty. And that experience has stayed with me for a long time. It's been a significant life force experience. That we can be honest and be in a safe place. A place of divine connection. It's glorious. So it's just not a state of of action, honesty. It is more than that. It is a place where we can reside. And other life experiences are waiting to be had in that very same way. Honesty is powerful. Wisdom is powerful. That comes from wilderness experiences. Allowing ourselves to be independent is to engage in a walk in the wilderness, to expose ourselves to the divine nature that surrounds us. And it is a frightening place because you could die there. There's no doubt about it. And my wilderness experiences have taken place more on a sailboat and in some pretty stormy weather. You can get real spiritual real fast on a sailboat in tough weather. And it really opens you up to the realities of mortality and how fragile our life force really is. And the preservation of that life force is the key to independence. So I want to spend a little bit more time on that because it's important to understand, to me anyway, that if you turn your life force over to your fantasies, in other words, you indulge yourself in your proclivities for questing for money or celebrity or power or, well, you name it. You want to be a certain thing, a famous person, whatever. If you turn your life force over to that stuff, you're going to find pretty soon that your personality is going to begin to dominate who you are. And personality is something that you really want to learn how to set down and put off to the side a little bit. Because personality is more of our connection to another aspect of our being, our creation, which comes from Genesis 2:7, depending on the text you have, which says that man came from the dust of the earth. He came from dirt. Well, it's very important to understand what that means. It means we came from organic matter that was here on this planet. And we were constructed from organic matter here. In other words, we started out as creatures, mortal creatures, beasts. We were beasts who were in a moment of incredible grace and creativity given access to the divine as beings. What does that mean? With free will, you can indulge your personality and return to bestiality. You can become the beast. Or you can say, no, I don't want that. I don't want to indulge my personality. What I want to do is I want to draw closer to my divine being. To be a being in the divine hierarchy with a calling, with a mission, and a connection. We do that by understanding the nature of our own experiences and our choices. Looking at what we're doing every day and saying, I don't want to indulge my personality here. I want to move in a different direction. I want to connect with regards to my being. That's what I want to do. And there are lots of ways to do that. And I think having a spiritual practice, number one, learning how to manage our own experiences is critical. Because in the managing of your experience, my experience, I can craft intentions. I can figure out what it is that I want to be. What do I intend to do? And I don't think there's a more powerful spiritual practice than crafting intentions. Intentions that are in alignment with the divine, with our calling, with the expansion of the cosmos that we can be participatory of. We can be part of that. And we can do that by managing and manufacturing in a way that's sublime our intentions. What do we want to be? Who do we want to be? Who do we want to be with? What will that look like? So I would say, and to use an old expression, to return to personality is a failure of imagination. You just can't think of anything else, and so you devolve into personal fantasies. I want to be famous, or I want to read about famous people, or I want to go to a movie that tells me about being famous. So again, you are letting that movie determine how you're going to imagine yourself. We're going to let that book, that philosopher, those sounds of music, that's powerful stuff. I love music. It's really great stuff. But what do we want to let it do in our lives? What feelings are aroused by that music? It's really interesting stuff. And symbols are the same way, and icons, and all of the things that we see around us, the art that is ever present in our lives. What is it reflecting? Return to personality, celebrity, fame, money, fortune? All that stuff, is that what it's all about? Or is there something we can pick that's a little different? That's the poetry of our own soul. And I'm using soul and personality interchangeably. And, I think you can come to that conclusion yourself as you look at yourself. And you do your own meditations. And you hold up these ideas for meditation for your own self. I think that's the path to finding a true independence of mind and finding an independence of personhood, that we are not just subject to every propaganda, every meme, every darn thing coming around the pike is just affecting us. And we can steel ourselves to that. We can become the steel man that is us. So I urge you to persist in your meditations, to pick your subject of meditation carefully and make it your own experience. Ones that you've had, that you've held dear and remembered and you're reminded of. Keep them close and meditate on them, because those are, in my experience, gateways to the divine. So thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it. And come see me at solaspiritus.com. Send me an email. Tell me what you're up to. I'd love to hear from you. Amen.